Welcome everyone. My name is Sean, and today we're going to cover a story that essentially will prove to you that there's no justice, that people can commit these hate hoaxes, they can be exposed after a lengthy investigation, the person who was punished can speak out, maybe potentially file a lawsuit, but the person who perpetrated the hoax is going to skate by scot-free as long as she checks appropriate boxes that make her exempt from all criticism. Yes, that's right, we're revisiting the UVA hoax that I covered on this channel before, because now the girl at the center of the hoax, the one who admitted that she never heard what she claimed that she heard as she ruined this other girl's life, has been given an endorsement by Dove because of body positivity, because the woman is quite large. We're going to get into this. We're going to talk about it. But before we get into that, I just want to say thank you to everybody who signed up. actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And thank you to the podcast listeners, Spotify, Apple, and Google's podcasting platform.
My belief is that we should be centering the voices and experiences of the most marginalized people and communities at all times.
So this is Zyanha Bryant, somebody who first gained some notoriety when she organized her first social justice protest against the Robert E. Lee statue in Charlottesville at the age of 12, who ultimately ended up getting accepted into UVA due to her activism and was promoted by UVA, having her face plastered on buses and all across the campus due to the fact that the campus just wanted a virtue signal. And as you can hear, she's talking about body positivity or fat liberation, which is just asinine and ridiculous because Dove is endorsing her for this product. Now, this is incredibly unfortunate because Reason did a detailed news piece explaining how this woman ruined a white girl's life just for the fun of it in the most obvious hoax ever, and the school went along with it, even though investigation after investigation concluded that Morgan Bettinger, the victim in that instance, did nothing wrong. This is the video of the Black Lives Matter mob swarming her car after Bryant told a group of people that there was a threat made by Morgan against the crowds of people. And one of the most interesting things about this video is that some of the captions of it on Twitter actually said that Morgan, who is the woman in the car, was on top of the car issuing the threats on video, and this is one of the reasons why people believe this hoax, because they were being told something was on video, even though the video doesn't show it, but because it was being retweeted and shared and posted by a professional victim, a professional race hustler, a professional activist, it was just believed.
The police are here. There's no police officers.
And this got to the point where she ultimately ended up facing consequences, not just from the students, from the school administration, despite the fact that investigation after investigation showed over and over again that Morgan Bettinger did nothing wrong. And if you guys want a quick refresher, here's how it went down. There was a Black Lives Matter protest. It's July of 2020, so it's the height of the Black Lives Matter riots in and around the UVA campus. Morgan Bettinger is heading home on her way from work, and she sees a dump truck semi-blocking the road. She decides to go around the dump truck because, again, it is semi-blocking the road. Then she sees a group of protesters, Black Lives Matter people, out in the streets and realizes the road is blocked. She stops the car. The dump truck driver flags her down. She says, "Oh, I thought I could go around." The guy says, "Yeah, I'm blocking it off for their safety." And then she says, "Well, it's a good thing you're here because these people could have been speed bumps if not for you," praising the dump truck driver for helping out the protesters. Now, a dump truck is rather loud, so what ended up happening was the driver didn't hear, so he said, "What?" She repeats it, Second time, the same compliment, and then everybody moves on and goes about their day. Just kidding, that's what would happen in a sensible world, but instead, because somebody in the crowd that is yet to be identified said they heard her threatening to run over the protesters, saying that she'll turn them into speed bumps, or something to that effect. That gets to Bryant, and then Bryant ends up rallying the mob of people to surround this woman's car, not let her leave, based on the fact that this woman is menacing them. And when you watch the video, you tell me if you think Morgan Bettinger, who's in the car, and by the way, there's threats of violence from the crowd around her towards her, is menacing all these protesters as she's crying because there's no way for her to escape, and her life is being threatened, and people in the crowd are talking about yanking her out of the car, going ghetto on her and beating the crap out of her based on this threat that Bryant is hyping up, even though subsequent investigations would later show that despite the fact that she said she heard the threat 5 times, she must have gotten this secondhand.
I'm not worried about the police. You might be, but I don't give a about it at the end of the day. So, fair, but you know, what you do.
Girl, do you get the zoom on this? Like, it's all over.
They knew what was happening.
He would make good.
I know what the she said.
That's okay.
What you gonna do? You gonna whip her ass? You gonna whip? She not gonna leave. What you gonna push the car? What the Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, damn, some of us from the hood out here. You gonna whip her ass or you gonna whip her ass? Which one? Like, ain't nobody gonna argue.
But that's just one incident. The police eventually came. They were able to get her out of the area. But unfortunately, Bryant was tweeting this out in real time. And like I said, the miscommunication from what was actually in the video, from what the video was captioned, led to people thinking that Morgan Bettinger got on top of her car and was threatening to murder these protesters because she's an evil white racist. Then it got even worse when people ended up discovering that her father was a police officer. Now, to be clear, as I talked about before, when I say was a police officer, I don't mean retired. I mean he passed away 6 years prior to this incident.
Not only did they start attacking me now, they were actually going after my family online. And that means even more to me. It's one thing to go after me. I can defend myself to an extent. But then when you go after my family, that's another level. And that's something I'm absolutely not okay with. That in itself is terrifying. Police came to my house at 2 a.m. the next morning on the 18th to look over the death threats via social media that I was receiving, to make sure we were protected at my house, to make sure that no one was coming to my house to fulfill those threats that they were making.
Now, when this was discovered, the civil rights activists, the heroes of our modern era who stand up against the powerful for the powerless, decided to smear her dead father, and use her dead father as a proxy to call her racist because her father was a cop and then he died. Therefore, this girl by the transitive property is an evil white racist. Now, they did investigations. During the course of the investigation, they brought in the truck driver. He repeated exactly what Morgan Bettinger said, and the investigation ultimately ended up concluding that Morgan Bettinger was in the right. So, of course, she had faced no consequences for that. No, I'm just kidding, because Zyanha Bryant was calling the administration racist, demanding that this woman get expelled, get punished for this, even though they knew, a panel of jurors, of students, that she did not say what Bryant made up she said. They decided to punish her anyway, and their justification was because Heather Heyer was hit by a car at a protest, her even saying this compliment to the trucker that referenced somebody getting hit by a car is her being insensitive, therefore she should be punished.
I was sanctioned with four different things I had to complete. The first was 50 hours of community service with a social justice approved organization. The second was 3 hours of remedial education on police community relations with a specific professor at UVA that the UJC recommended. The third was I had to write an apology letter for my speech to Zyanha Bryant herself. And the fourth was if I was ever convicted of another standard of conduct 2 violation, I was going to automatically be expelled.
There was also additional investigations because Bryant filed a civil rights complaint against the university against her because she was being discriminated against because for some reason they didn't expel her immediately, because, she's entitled to have that because she's a morbidly obese Black Lives Matter activist, and apparently that gives her god tier status at the university. And this is where they discovered that not only did the 5 threats that she alleged not happen, there were only 2 instances of her saying this to the truck driver, but Bryant didn't even hear it herself. There was also surveillance video and all these other things, so if this woman had gotten on top of the car, we would have some kind of video of that. It was just made up by Bryant, and by the way, it should be incredibly suspicious that somebody who is known for being a Black Lives Matter activist since the age of 12, that's why she's in the school, somebody who profits off of this, somebody who benefits from the idea of evil white racism being out there, would be the only person to have heard this poor girl do an evil white racism against her. Obviously, that suspicion was completely overlooked, and even after this has all come out, Dove has decided to reward this behavior by giving her an endorsement. Now look, I have a full 20-minute breakdown of this specific incident from front to back, all the detailed information, clips, videos, etc., linked in the description if you want to get the full story. I was just trying to give you the long and short of it before we move on to Dove, because they were contacted by the New York Post, by the Daily Mail. They've received a bunch of criticism for aligning with this alleged hoaxer, and guess what? They just didn't even respond.
So when I think about what fat liberation looks like to me, it looks like centering the voices and the experiences of those who live in and who maneuver through spaces and institutions in a fat body.
And by the way, as if partnering with somebody who made it her own personal goal to ruin an innocent student's life who had nowhere near the power that she had, the video is also garbage. She's talking about moving through spaces and institutions in a fat body. Listen to the way that these people disassociate themselves from their own life and from any responsibility from the situation that she's in. Now, some people do have glandular problems and all that. They have a bunch of other issues, but let's be honest, for the most part, weight management is on the person who has the issue, not on broader society, the institutions, or the spaces that you have to move through in a fat body as if you have no connection to that body. And by the way, it would probably be easier to move through a bunch of spaces in a fat body if you lost some weight. But this is the campaign that they're going for.
It looks like making accessible spaces and having conversations that are aware of the fact that people have different bodies and that they are interacting with space and people and institutions and communities in a different way.
So they're not only working with somebody who Reason has shown to be a racist hoaxer, but they're also working with somebody who is unhealthy and then portraying that as a part and parcel associated with the Dove brand. It's absolutely ridiculous. I'm sure their ESG score is going up through the roof, but honestly, this is one of those things where people should draw a line and probably avoid Dove products just based on this. I mean, think about it. Of all the overweight people they could have picked up for this ad campaign, of all the Black Lives Matter activists, because I'm sure they want that angle, they could have picked up for this campaign. Of all the overweight Black Lives Matter activists that they could have picked up for this campaign, they happened to go with somebody who went out of her way to ruin a girl's life and abused her position of privilege at the university in order to do so. There is no character standard for Dove, and honestly, I'm not somebody who's like boycott every single company, but this, if I did buy Dove products, would get me to avoid buying Dove products. This is too much. Listen, you can have left-wing actors endorse your products. That tends to happen because most of the left-wing actors endorse products. But when you start hiring Jussie Smollett to endorse your product, that's when I'm not on board. This is the Jussie Smollett of Black Lives Matter activists. She pulled off this thing, benefited from it dramatically, and has still not faced the consequences, and for some ungodly reason continuously gets rewarded, despite the fact that the Reason piece is incredibly thorough and overwhelming in its evidence presented that she just made this up, that she was going off of nonsense, and that she consistently changed her story to make it worse to benefit herself, and admitted as such in the subsequent investigation.
It looks like making accessible spaces and having conversations that are aware of the fact that people have different bodies.
The ad is also insulting to your intelligence. She's talking about how her partnering with Dove will make you, the dumb idiot out there in the audience, who is apparently completely unaware of the fact that there are overweight people in this country. I mean, obesity is a huge problem in the United States of America, but you're completely unaware of that, and we'll have conversations about the fact that people's overweight bodies actually exist. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but this girl just told you. It's just nonsense. It's academic garbage, jargon that doesn't mean anything, and exactly what I would expect from somebody who hoaxed another girl.
Fat liberation looks like fully embracing those differences and having those conversations instead of shying away from them. To learn more about fat liberation and the campaign for size freedom that Dove is supporting, visit dove.com/size freedom.
Fat liberation and size freedom. And they even set up a subdomain in order for you to learn more about fat liberation and size freedom. Now look, part of me doesn't want to believe that this is outrage marketing. You know, you put out something outrageous, there's a backlash, then there's a backlash to the over-the-top outrage from the original backlashers, and that results in Dove's name being put out there. Part of me doesn't want to believe that this is about boosting things like an ESG score or making Dove look like a socially conscious corporation. Part of me genuinely wants to believe that this is about Dove figuring out that these enormously large people require using so much more soap to clean themselves that they're promoting this style just to make money in the old-fashioned way. And the fact is, when you're really big, you tend to build up a lot of sweat in a lot of places, so not only is there greater surface area, but you have to clean more frequently. And I want to believe that Dove is just going full evil corporation right here, and they've decided that they want to fatten you up so you buy more soap. A straight up logical one-to-one reason for doing this. But in reality, in actuality, I'm sure if somebody looked into this company, their marketing director is some 20-year-old white girl, somebody who Bryant, by the way, would frame for a hoax at the drop of a hat, who thinks that this is progressive, who loves her story, who loves the fact that she was a Black Lives Matter protester at age 12, and she thought it would be a good idea to promote this person, and she's never even heard of the hoax, nor does she even care about the hoax. She probably is one of those people who thinks that Bettinger in the video where she's being surrounded and she's being threatened was on top of the car screaming threats at the entire crowd. It's sad. It's a miserable situation. I hate what Dove is doing, but more importantly, I hate what Bryant did and the impact that it's still having on Bettinger. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about a hoaxer getting an endorsement, because that's where we are in this country. Till next time.